Hi, I'm Tawny from unraveledmotherhood.com, and if you're returning, thank you for watching this video, and if you are new, welcome. I talk about motherhood, marriage, family life, faith, and Hawaii living. And so today I want to share my tips for having a natural birth in the hospital. And if you're pregnant, congratulations. This is exciting, and I hope these tips can help you. Please subscribe and leave a comment below if you have any tips to share, or if you have exciting news that you're gonna have a baby soon, whatever it may be. I really appreciate that. So my first tip for having a natural birth in the hospital is to plan to have a natural birth. Now you might be thinking, Tawny, that is the dumbest tip I've ever heard. This is not helpful at all. It's really powerful to say, I'm gonna have a natural birth. And you don't have to tell anybody, you don't even have to say it out loud to anybody, but to plan it with you and whoever your birth partner is, if you have a birth partner, maybe your spouse, and maybe coordinate with your spouse and say, look, I really want to have a natural birth. That's my plan. And just the power of those words and setting your mindset to have a natural birth instead of it being like, well, it would be nice to have a natural birth. Nobody gets things from just being passive about it. A lot of people have to be set on a goal to reach a goal. So say that you're gonna have a natural birth. The worst thing that can happen is you don't get to have the natural birth you're hoping for, and that can be hard too, but you're gonna regret not trying the hardest if that's something you want, if that's something that's important to you. So plan to have a natural birth, and you can do this just simply by stating it. You can write a birth plan if you want. I never wrote a birth plan, but share with your provider too. Your provider is gonna be a good indication if you're gonna get the support you need. My provider ended up being really supportive of my choice. I was very set on having a natural birth, and because I had a certified midwife at my birth instead of an OB, I think that really helped. But make sure your provider is encouraging of your choice. And if you feel flack, you might want to consider changing to a provider that will encourage you in whatever you want to do with your body. My next tip is to have one reliable birth person or birth partner for your birth. Now, I know that lots of people get doulas, and that's an amazing resource too. Personally, I couldn't afford a doula, and I trusted that my husband was going to be a good support person for me. So make sure you have a reliable support person. Hopefully it can be your spouse if you have a spouse, and it could be a friend if you don't have a spouse, or if you're, military or single, maybe a mother. I highly recommend having one person. I've really enjoyed having one person, besides the nurses and the doctors. I really enjoyed just having me and my husband. It was a special time for us to bond. It was a time for me to rely on him and for him to support me, and it was just really special. And I've heard lots of horror birth stories because people were treating it like a cocktail hour. If you have more than, like 2 extra bodies, like a husband and a doula or whatever it may be, in the room, it can start to get like a cocktail party. While you're over there breathing through your contractions and going under severe pain, I don't want to say severe, I'm not trying to scare, intense contractions is really what it is. They are waiting, and it's a long process sometimes, especially if it's your first birth, especially if you have to go to the hospital. You usually go earlier than if you had a home birth. So you don't want to have too many people that they get bored and they start chatting, or they start doing something while you're just trying to breathe. It can be a big distraction, and it can feel really frustrating when you're going through, trying to keep the pain to the minimal, and people are just doing their own thing and not even paying attention to you. You're there to birth, and so you want people who are going to be supporting that and working towards that with you, not doing something else and just chatting. So another side caveat is, don't feel bad if somebody wants to be in your birth and you don't want them in your birth. You are not going to regret saying no, and it has nothing to do with them. I understand that some people really want to feel connected to you and your child, but there's plenty of time after birth to see the baby and to connect. And that's something that's private. If you want to keep it private, then you don't need to share that with someone that closely. So just set your boundaries, because you're never going to regret setting up your birth as best as you can. This is more of a practical tip, and it's to practice your breathing. So while you are going through labor, you're going to have contractions. And contractions, they are, I don't want to say they're painful. I mean, it does get to a point where it's very strong. And it's more so an intensity that keeps coming, and it's exhausting. And so in order to keep your body in optimal position for the baby, you want to keep relaxing, and so you want to practice your breathing. There's tons of resources on YouTube for practicing breathing, so go ahead and look some of those up. If I can find some, I will put them in the description box below. But just practice your breathing and make it a natural thing for you, because you want to be breathing properly in a way that relaxes your body while you're in labor. There's so many things going on, and especially since you're going to be in the hospital, if you're going to be in the hospital, there's lots of things like people talking to you and things that happen that can distract from what your body needs to do. So just have that on autopilot, that you are naturally able to just go into your breathing, into the zone, and you don't even have to think about it. My next tip is to practice low moans. And you probably want to do this privately, maybe in the shower. Maybe I did this with my first a lot in the car when I was driving alone. There are YouTube videos about how to do the low moans, or I don't know if it's like how to do them. I guess there are YouTube videos. But when you're doing those low moans, it helps to relax your body. It doesn't tense you up, or you're like this, tensing up your body and not making it easier for your birth to progress. You want to have a relaxed position, so you want to have low moans, and I'll do one for you. But just know that if you are watching videos with this happening, or birth videos, I don't know if you've ever seen a birth video, it sounds like almost inappropriate, or you're watching something inappropriate. So just beware. Maybe wear headphones and you listen to that, or turn the volume down. So when I'm in labor, I try to do low moans, like that, kind of like that. And yeah, there's lots of videos, or you could just watch a natural birth and you'll kind of see them naturally do that, because your body wants to relax, but you also want to let out some air and just keep the process going, so you feel like you're doing something. It helps to ease the intensity. Another recommendation I have is to practice.
Mom,
Yes.
I need super cold water, because I'm
Okay, go grab
so
some of them.
hot.
Because you're wearing like 3 layers of clothes, honey. Why don't you just take off some layers of clothes? Okay. Another tip I have is to study labor positions that you want to try. So there are tons of different labor positions, and you are going to be kind of in the zone, and you're, again, with the autopilot, you're going to want things on autopilot. You don't want to feel insecure about trying something like, oh, I heard this is good. Practice them while you're pregnant, so that when you are in labor, it's just natural. Okay, I've heard this one is really good for opening your hips, my hips, or whatever it may be, and just have that.
I'll do it on here so that it doesn't spill a lot.
Okay. Okay. Anyways, practice labor positions that you want to try. So you're not going to be, maybe. You're probably not going to be looking up labor positions while you're in labor. And you also aren't going to be wanting to getting into weird new positions while you're in labor, probably. You might naturally get into those positions, but just have an idea of what kind of positions you want to try out and practice them while you're pregnant, so that when it comes to labor, it's just natural. You don't feel insecure about moving. I don't know if it's just my personal problem, but I was like, can I do this? Can I do that? Just go for it, and just get yourself acquainted with the different positions that you want to try so that it comes super naturally and you can just labor so easily. You're going to be a natural, just moving into the positions that you have practiced and you know, and it'll help for you to get baby moving. Maybe something is not working or you're feeling uncomfortable position, you'll just try a new one that you practiced. Next is to listen to positive birth stories. So the internet is an amazing thing where we can have access to lots of information, and sometimes that information is helpful and sometimes it's harmful. And sometimes it's not intending to be harmful, but if we listen to too many botched birth stories, we're not going to be encouraged to have a natural labor. We're just going to think that we need to give up and just, you know, those dreams have...
Are you looking at me?
Yeah, I'm laughing at you because I'm trying to record a video and you're making so much noise. Okay. Anyways, the point is, people can have the same OB, the same nurses, and the same hospital and have completely different birth stories. A lot of it is going to just depend on the situation and what kind of preparedness, what your body is used to, if you were induced or not. So don't compare someone's story, even if they have the same OB and the same hospital as you. Don't think that just because they couldn't do it and they had a bad experience with a nurse or an OB that you're gonna have the same experience. I have had the same OB and the same midwives as other people, and I've heard horror stories, and I've also heard better interactions than I've had with the doctors. So don't feel like you need to take the negative stories into account. You can always be prepared and educate yourself on things that can happen in birth, and I think that will really empower you because you'll kind of be able to make a sound decision on what procedures or whatever you want to take. But listen to positive birth stories. Listen to positive natural birth stories. Listen to the stories that you want to emulate. If you don't want to tear when you give birth, listen to what people did who didn't tear. So just you want to copy the people that are doing what you want. Okay, keep in mind that if someone's birth story sounds too good to be true, it might still be true, but it might not be true for you. And everyone's body is different. So I have a friend who births super fast. I have a couple friends that birth super fast, and they happen to be pregnant right before me. So I had hope that I would have a super fast labor. Now my labor ended up being 8 hours altogether from when I got in there to when I gave birth. Now that's fairly fast for a first birth, but I wouldn't consider that fast. It wasn't like the 2 hours or maybe 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours that I thought I would have. It was a lot slower, and that's okay too. Just keep in mind that you might not have the same experience as your friends, and I can guarantee your experience will be different. My next tip is to focus on what is coming, not what is happening. So when you're in the throes of labor, especially if you... Okay, the video cut off and I didn't realize how soon it cut off. So I'm gonna share with you my last few tips. My next tip that I was sharing with you is to focus on what is coming, not what is happening. So when we're in labor for hours and hours, it can kind of feel defeating sometimes, especially if we had expectations of labor moving more quickly or whatever it may be. I notice that when I get to the hospital, I have this expectation of it needs to happen really soon. And there's almost this pressure because you've got a doctor coming in and checking on you, you got nurses coming in and checking on you, and it just kind of feels like I need to get this baby out right away. And that's a great plan, but sometimes we just need to remember that each contraction is helping your baby come into this world. So trying to focus on that and how each contraction and struggle you're having is pushing you towards that goal really helps to keep the focus on the end goal, because anytime we do something that is difficult, it's hard if we don't know when the difficulty is going to end. And so when you're in labor, you don't know when you're going to give birth, but you know that you are going to give birth, and you know that your baby is slowly making or quickly making his way or her way into the world. So just focus on that and focus on the excitement that each contraction is bringing you closer to meeting your baby. My next tip is to sleep while you can. For my first baby, I started getting contractions, and because I got contractions like towards the middle of the night, I started getting really excited, and I started kind of singing to my baby, like, well, singing to myself. I just like to sing, but playing ukulele, and I stayed up basically all night, just getting really excited, thinking labor is coming. And it was coming, but it wasn't coming quite so quickly. And so my biggest tip of advice is, if your labor is not too intense for you that you can't sleep through it, is to sleep. You're gonna want the energy, all the energy you have. And if you are super tired, which I was with my first, you are gonna get more easily defeated and worn out. So with my first, I was 9 centimeters, and if you've ever been 9 centimeters, it's an intense time. The contractions are intense. And between my contractions, there was a short period of time that I would just fall asleep. And then I'd wake up really quickly and be like, push on my back, Drake. So sleep while you can. Don't get too excited. It's great to be excited for your baby, but don't let that prevent you from sleeping. If you can sleep and it's nighttime, sleep. Don't force yourself to sleep if it's daytime, But if you feel like you could take a nap, or you feel like you need some rest, then go for it if you can. My next tip is specifically for hospital births. If you want to go naturally, is to stay home as long as possible. So the longer you can prolong going to the hospital, like I said, when you go to the hospital, there's kind of this pressure of, I need to have my baby ASAP. And no one's like rushing you. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully no one's rushing you. But it's that pressure of just, I'm here to, this is where I go to have my baby. And so when you go there, that's why it can be very defeating if you're not in labor yet, quite yet, or if it's taking really long, because that's where you go to have your baby. So stay home as long as possible. I live in Hawaii, so the hospital is literally 5 minutes away from where I live. And when I had my first, it was like 30 minutes max. So everything's relatively close. You gotta gauge what's gonna be your plan, and you can take your time. I think that it's helpful to stop by and get something to eat, and to make sure you have snacks, and just get excited and kind of enjoy your time before it gets super intense and you can't walk and you can't move. The day that I went into labor, I went to the coffee shop in the morning with my sister, and I was definitely breathing through contractions, but it was just a nice way to kind of just be out and do what I normally do, which is go to the coffee shop and hang out, and just kind of take your mind off of things and just enjoy yourself before you have this really intense time of your life. My next tip is to learn about the process of labor. So there's a really good video series that I will link below if I can find it. I think it's still on there. But I didn't take any prenatal classes. I don't think you really need to take prenatal classes. With the internet and with books, you can kind of learn all that you need relatively free, relatively easily, and ask friends and get real life experiences. But if you learn the process of labor, it'll really help you to understand what is going on with your body, and it'll help you to feel more confident in making decisions and positioning yourself, like we were talking about earlier, finding the right positions, and also advocating for yourself and knowing what choices you want to make if something was to happen. So just kind of educate yourself on the process. You don't want to go in there blindly and then be shocked by something that you should have known, if that makes sense. but there's so many resources, and I will link some resources below for you to utilize. Because honestly, when I wanted to my natural birth, all I did was binge watch YouTube videos. I would just put on a YouTube video in the car and listen to it like an audio. Whatever I wanted to do, I would just listen to it on YouTube, and like I would type in how to breathe, how not to tear, how to have a natural labor, tips for natural labor. And so you can learn a lot for free, and it's really easy and convenient. So do that, and then you'll just feel more confident about your choice, because you don't want to feel like you don't know what you're talking about, especially depending on the staff that you get. You don't want to feel so insecure that you don't have the birth that you intended because maybe the nurses push you. Sometimes you get nurses that say like, you don't get an award for not taking the epidural. So just educate yourself if you can. My second to last tip is to think of each contraction as a wave. So when we think of our contractions, they're not just like boom, tons of pain all at once. It gradually gets up to the most painful, or most intense I should say, and then goes down. So you have time to breathe through it and to know, okay, it's gonna get a little more intense. And you can, some people count, some people say something or scripture or something in their head, but just know it's going to get intense, and then know that you're going to hit a threshold of pain, and then things are going to go down and you can start relaxing, and you can just breathe easy knowing you're going to just ride the wave and come over it and go down, and ride the wave and come over it and go down. So thinking of it as a wave really helps, because when you are having kind of back-to-back contractions, it might feel like, oh, I'm just in pain the whole time, when the reality is you're not in pain the whole time. And even for me, with my first, I didn't know how to advocate for myself, and they put me on Pitocin because I was stuck at 8 centimeters for so long. So they put me on Pitocin, so I was having more contractions. I was having my natural contractions and the chemical contractions, and it felt like a lot, and I felt like I was almost in pain the whole time. But the reality was it was just an intensity, and because they came so close together, it was an intensity for a short time, and then a short time again, or whatever it may be. And so each contraction is going to be different, but knowing that it's a wave, and knowing that it's going to hit a threshold, it's not going to keep going up. It's going to hit a threshold and it's going to come down. Oh, is that a mosquito? Really helps. It makes a good visual to know that you're gonna get through this, and you're gonna just enjoy that rest time. And that's the big thing. Enjoy that rest time. Even if it's 5 seconds, get yourself in the habit of just enjoying that rest and appreciating it, even if it's short, and not going, oh my gosh, it's over again, I gotta breathe through this next one. Just enjoy the rest, and then work through the hard parts, and then enjoy the rest again. And it's a lot of work, it's energy, but it's gonna be worth it, and it's gonna help you to keep your labor natural. Okay, and my final tip is to have grace on yourself. If having a natural labor was so easy, everyone would be having it. But we live in a modern world with lots of interventions, lots of over information, and just kind of a lot of chaos. And so have grace on yourself. The main thing is that you have a happy and healthy baby, and that you are happy and healthy. And at the end of the day, no one's gonna look at your 2-year-old, your 5-year-old, your 10-year-old, your any age old kid and say, I can tell that that baby had an epidural. Something is, that's not how it works. The choice that you end up making, or you have to make, is gonna be fine, and you're gonna be okay, and you're just gonna want a healthy baby and a happy baby, and that's all. So those are my tips for having a natural labor at the hospital. I hope they were helpful for you. If they were, please like this video and consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one.